Picture this: 250,000 Americans converging on the nation's capital, their footsteps echoing with centuries of pain. August 28, 1963. The air thick with anticipation, fear, and hope. Not another protest, the moment destiny crystallized. What drives someone to risk everything? Behind every face in that crowd lived a story. Sharecroppers who'd never left their counties, teachers who'd lost jobs for demanding equality, children who'd watched parents beaten for registering to vote. They came knowing violence could erupt. They came anyway. Courage demands action, despite terror. 6 months earlier, organizers gathered in a cramped New York office. Philip Randolph, 74 years old, had tried this once before in 1941. He'd threatened President Roosevelt with a march then and won. Now he wanted the real thing. But could they control such enormous crowds? The Kennedy administration panicked. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover predicted riots, bloodshed, chaos. Washington hospitals stockpiled plasma. Military troops waited on standby. Congress postponed sessions. White officials literally fled the city. They'd seen Birmingham's fire hoses, Mississippi's murders. Why would Washington be different? Support our channel, subscribe so you won't miss exciting new videos. Your likes and comments inspire us to create more quality content. Together, we'll make this channel a place of knowledge and inspiration. Thank you for your support. I'm Bayard Rustin. They want to erase me. Arrested for loving men, yet I alone know how to organize this. Without me, chaos. With me, they whisper behind closed doors. I orchestrate every detail anyway. Portable toilets, sandwich distribution, sound systems. Precision born from knowing one mistake means disaster. The young organizers argued constantly. John Lewis, 23, wanted militant language. Others feared alienating white allies. His original speech, called Kennedy's Civil Rights Bill, too little, too late. Church leaders threatened to walk out. Lewis faced an impossible choice: compromise your rage or fracture the movement. Meanwhile, ordinary people made extraordinary decisions. Josephine Moody, a domestic worker from Chicago, saved for months. Her white employer threatened firing if she attended. She went anyway, leaving her job behind. Freedom meant more than survival. Sometimes revolution begins with a single woman's quiet rebellion. Special trains departed from across America. The Freedom Train from Jacksonville carried black and white passengers together illegal in Florida. Conductors worried about arrests at state lines. Passengers sang spirituals through the night, transforming fear into defiant joy. The train became rolling church, rolling resistance. Not everyone celebrated. Malcolm X called it the farce on Washington, claiming it was too controlled, too white, approved. He had a point. Organizers banned certain signs, censored speeches, coordinated everything with police. Was this liberation or performance? The debate raged then. It rages still. August 28th dawned clear and hot. By sunrise, buses already lined the streets. Families spread picnic blankets near the Lincoln Memorial. Old women in church hats stood beside college students in overalls. Reporters expected violence. Instead, they found children playing, strangers sharing food, humanity recognizing itself. Police outnumbered protesters initially. Officers watched from rooftops, their rifles ready. Chief Robert Murray had positioned 4,000 cops throughout the city. Helicopters circled overhead. Ambulances waited on every corner. The government prepared for war. But the marchers came armed only with determination and song. By 10 o'clock, the crowd swelled impossibly large. People filled every inch around the reflecting pool. Some climbed trees for better views. The heat became oppressive, 90 degrees, no shade. Yet nobody left. They'd traveled too far, suffered too much. This moment mattered more than comfort. You've heard Mahalia Jackson's voice on recordings, but picture her that morning, hands trembling, remembering her grandmother's slave stories. Presidents and kings had heard her sing before. Today felt different. Today she'd perform for ancestors, not royalty. Can you feel the weight? The program started late, marches always do. Folk singers performed. Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Peter, Paul and Mary. Music threaded through political speeches. But everyone waited for one man, the preacher from Atlanta, the one whose words could move mountains. Could he move America? Martin Luther King almost didn't deliver the speech, you know. He'd prepared different remarks, more policy-focused, less poetic. They sat in his suit pocket, carefully typed pages. He'd rehearsed them repeatedly. But sometimes history demands improvisation. Sometimes the moment calls for something beyond planning. Before King took the podium, others spoke. Roy Wilkins, Whitney Young, Walter Reuther, each added their voice to the chorus. John Lewis delivered his censored speech, still powerful despite the cuts. He spoke of police brutality, voter suppression, broken promises, youth's anger barely contained by elder wisdom. Then King approached the microphone. 200,000 faces turned toward him. Television cameras broadcast to millions more. The weight of expectations could crush a man. He began reading his prepared text. His delivery was polished, professional, but it wasn't transcendent. Not yet. 4 minutes into his speech, Mahalia Jackson shouted from behind him, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." She'd heard him use that phrase before, in Detroit, in Chicago. She knew what he could do when passion overtook preparation. King heard her, hesitated, then abandoned his script. "I have a dream," he began, and everything shifted. The words came from somewhere deeper than notes. From church pews and protest marches, from jail cells and midnight threats, from his children's faces and every lynched body, from centuries of pain demanding redemption. The crowd sensed transformation. "I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood." Impossible, they'd said. Naive, they'd warned. Yet here he dared imagine it anyway. Watch the footage closely. See how people's faces transform as King speaks. Tears flow freely. Hands reach toward heaven. Strangers embrace. Something happens that defies rational explanation. Call it the Spirit. Call it collective awakening. Call it whatever you want. But something holy descended that afternoon. "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Every parent understood. They dried tears after classmates called their babies ugly, watched sons flinch at police. A white woman from Boston later recalled, "I'd come as an ally, feeling good about myself. But hearing King speak, I realized I'd never truly understood the depth of the wound, the breadth of the vision. I went home different than I arrived, smaller and larger simultaneously. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice." Mississippi, that word carried weight. Murder. Emmett Till, Medgar Evers. Could Mississippi transform? The speech lasted 17 minutes. Some call them the most important 17 minutes in American oratory. Others argue they shifted nothing laws matter more than words. Both perspectives hold truth. King knew this. He'd march again tomorrow, get arrested again, face brutality again. Words alone never freed anyone. Let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. His voice grew stronger with each repetition. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. The crowd responded, echoing him. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Call and response. Preacher and congregation. Ancient ritual renewed. In living rooms across America, white families watched their televisions in stunned silence. Some felt inspired. Others felt threatened. Many felt both. Their comfortable narratives about race collapsed under the weight of King's moral clarity. Reality shifted whether they welcomed it or not. We stood below him, 200,000 hearts beating as one, something building. We sensed it before words came. History gathering itself, preparing to leap. The climax approached. Everyone felt it. We held our breath. Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. The old spiritual erupted from his mouth. transformed into prophecy. The crowd exploded. Applause thundered for minutes. People wept openly. They'd witnessed something rare, perfect alignment between messenger, message, and moment. But here's what documentaries often skip. After the speeches ended, most people just walked away. No riots, no bloodshed, no chaos officials predicted. They simply dispersed peacefully, leaving behind almost no litter. The contrast stunned observers. Maybe some thought, we've misunderstood everything about these people. That evening, march leaders met President Kennedy at the White House. The photographs show smiling faces, cordial handshakes, but Kennedy privately worried. The march succeeded too well. Now expectations would soar. Could legislation survive Senate filibusters? His political calculations grew more complex. Promise battled with pragmatism. Back home, marchers faced consequences. Some lost jobs immediately. Others endured harassment, threats, terror. A teacher from Alabama returned to find her house burned. Several participants were murdered within months. The vision exacted a price. Heroes in Washington became targets in small-town America. The FBI intensified surveillance on King. Hoover became obsessed, convinced King was communist-controlled. They tapped his phones, bugged his hotel rooms, sent him blackmail letters. The same government King asked for justice worked overtime to destroy him. Patriotism proved more complex than anthems suggested. Yet the march succeeded in ways its organizers never anticipated. It didn't create the civil rights movement that was decades old, but it crystallized something, made the movement visible to mainstream America, forced television networks to show Black dignity instead of only broadcasting Black suffering. Representation mattered. Consider the children who attended. That teenager scribbling notes became a historian. The girl clutching her mother's hand became a senator. Seeds planted that day took decades to sprout. Some are still growing now. History moves slower than impatience desires. Legacy unfolds across generations. The march also revealed tensions within the movement. Older leaders wanted respectability. Younger activists demanded militancy. Women organized everything but rarely spoke publicly. Class differences separated urban professionals from rural workers. Unity looked better from distance than up close. These fault lines would widen. Media coverage initially downplayed the march's significance. Some papers buried it on inside pages. Southern newspapers barely mentioned it. But images proved impossible to ignore. The masses, the dignity, King's moral authority. Photography and television made this march different from previous protests. Visibility became weapon. James Farmer, Corps director, sat in Louisiana jail during the march, arrested deliberately proving Southern oppression, while others spoke in Washington. His empty chair on stage spoke louder than presence could. Strategic absence. Sometimes the most powerful testimony comes from those who cannot attend. Within weeks, the Birmingham church bombing killed 4 little girls: Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, Denise McNair. Their deaths shattered any illusions about peaceful progress. Soaring rhetoric crashed against brutal reality. Hope and horror danced their eternal, terrible dance. The vision met dynamite. Congress debated civil rights legislation throughout fall and winter. Southern senators filibustered for 57 days straight. They read from phone books, recipe collections, anything to delay votes. Meanwhile, activists kept marching, kept organizing, kept dying. Law moves slowly. Justice, even slower. Progress demands patience activists didn't have. President Kennedy's assassination that November complicated everything. Lyndon Johnson inherited both the presidency and the civil rights struggle. Many doubted him, a Texan, a Southerner. But Johnson proved surprisingly committed. He told Congress, "We have talked long enough about equal rights. Now is time to write it." The Civil Rights Act passed in July 1964, nearly 1 year after the march. It outlawed discrimination in public accommodations, employment, education. Massive victory, right? Except enforcement remained spotty. Southern states resisted. Economic inequality persisted. Legal equality didn't automatically create actual equality. Words versus reality. King continued marching. Selma, Montgomery, Chicago, Memphis, each campaign brought new challenges. In Selma, police beat peaceful marchers bloody on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Chicago proved worse than Mississippi. Southern racists were honest about hatred. Northern liberals smiled while maintaining segregated neighborhoods. Hypocrisy wounds deeper than declared hostility. He also evolved politically. By 1967, King opposed the Vietnam War, connecting racism and militarism. He organized the Poor People's Campaign, demanding economic justice. These stances cost him allies. Liberal supporters withdrew. Media turned critical. Radicalism has consequences. Prophets rarely die popular. April 4th, 1968, Memphis, Tennessee. A motel balcony. A single bullet. At 39, King fell. The dreamer became martyr. Cities burned in rage and grief. The movement fractured without him. His death simultaneously vindicated and destroyed everything he'd worked for. Martyrdom means complicated legacy. Here's something rarely mentioned. King struggled with depression. The threats, the pressure, the slow pace of transformation, it overwhelmed him sometimes. He doubted himself, questioned whether anything mattered. Even prophets feel despair. Even heroes want to quit. Perseverance isn't absence of fear, it's acting despite it. The march's impact extended globally. Anti-apartheid activists in South Africa studied it. Democracy movements in Eastern Europe drew inspiration. Students in Beijing's Tiananmen Square quoted King. The vision transcended American borders. Oppression looks similar everywhere, so does resistance. Freedom songs travel without passports. Today, the march haunts us, monument and mirror simultaneously. We debate whether we've achieved the vision or betrayed it. Politicians invoke King while ignoring his radicalism. His birthday became a holiday, but his challenge remains unmet. Commemoration replaces action. We prefer dead prophets to living ones. Recent protesters, Black Lives Matter, immigration activists, climate organizers still march to the same monuments. The Lincoln Memorial hears new speeches, new visions. The tactics evolve, but the struggle continues. Perhaps that's the point. Freedom isn't destination, but journey. Each generation marches its own mile. Survivors from 1963 watch today's protests with mixed emotions. Pride at continuing resistance, frustration that it's still necessary. They thought their sacrifices would end the struggle. But justice doesn't work that way. There's no finish line. Just endless relay, passing batons between generations. The march also reminds us what's possible. 250,000 people gathered peacefully, demanded justice, shifted history. No bloodshed, no chaos, just organized, dignified resistance. They proved that ordinary people possess extraordinary power when united. That lesson terrifies authorities then and now. Unity threatens power. Think about the march's unsung heroes, the people who arranged buses, who prepared food, who cleaned up afterward, who risked jobs to attend, who never gave speeches but showed up anyway. History celebrates leaders, but movements require masses. Revolution is collective work, not individual heroism. Or consider the white participants, often erased from narratives. They face different risks: ostracism from family, accusations of betrayal, terror from their own communities. Their presence complicated simple racial narratives. Solidarity crosses boundaries, but extracts blood prices from every participant. Allyship demands more than words. It requires sacrifice. The march also highlighted media power. Television brought the movement into living rooms nationwide. But media attention is double-edged. It amplifies messages, but also distorts them. Cameras favor dramatic moments over patient organizing. Spectacle overshadows substance. Movements must navigate publicity's paradoxes carefully. Support our channel, subscribe so you won't miss exciting new videos. Your likes and comments inspire us to create more quality content. Together, we'll make this channel a place of knowledge and inspiration. Thank you for your support. We romanticize the march now, but participants remember fear, real terror. They didn't know it would end peacefully. Every moment held potential catastrophe. One provocation could trigger massacre. They walked forward anyway, carrying courage like invisible shields. Bravery means acting despite terror, not lacking it. King's speech endures, partly because it balanced militancy and hope. He condemned injustice fiercely while preaching nonviolence. He demanded immediate transformation while envisioning long-term healing. That balance, rage and love, proves almost impossible to maintain. Yet that's exactly what justice requires: angry hope, loving fury, complicated truth. Some participants regretted not being more radical. They believed nonviolence and compromise delayed liberation. Malcolm X's critiques haunted them. Should they have demanded more, fought harder, refused compromise? These questions lack easy answers. Strategy debates consume movements. Tactics matter, but so does survival. The march occurred because of infrastructure built over decades. Churches, unions, civil rights organizations they created. Networks enabling mass mobilization. Movements require boring work. Phone trees, mailing lists, training sessions. Glamorous moments rest on unglamorous foundations. Infrastructure precedes inspiration. Organization enables revolution. Consider the speech's religious foundation. King spoke as preacher, using biblical imagery, prophetic language, spiritual authority. The movement was deeply Christian, rooted in Black church traditions. This makes some modern activists uncomfortable. But you can't understand the movement without understanding its faith. Secularism obscures truth. The march also demonstrated strategic genius. Organizers chose Lincoln Memorial, deliberately linking their struggle to slavery's end. They scheduled it for a Wednesday, making violence harder because workers weren't off. Every detail served purpose. Successful movements require both passion and planning. Feeling guides, but strategy wins. Not everyone who marched agreed with everything. They debated tactics, strategies, goals. Unity doesn't require unanimity. They disagreed, but stayed together. Held tensions without fracturing. That's remarkable. Movements usually collapse under internal conflicts. Maybe the march's greatest lesson: maintain solidarity despite differences. Unity enables power. Now we reach the unexpected part. Most documentaries end with King's speech, implying mission accomplished. But that's not where the story ends. The real question isn't what happened that day, it's what happened next. Did America transform? Did the prophecy materialize? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Progress came slower and smaller than marchers hoped. Yes, laws shifted, but poverty persists. Schools remain segregated. Police violence continues. Mass incarceration replaces slavery. The vision deferred becomes nightmare recurring. Victory and defeat intertwine so tightly separation proves impossible. Yet something did transform consciousness. Millions of people seeing that march thought differently about race and justice. Not everyone, not immediately, but enough to shift culture gradually. Ideas planted in 1963 still grow today. Revolution begins in minds before manifesting in laws. Patience battles urgency eternally. The march's true legacy might be this: it showed that progress is possible but incomplete. That justice requires constant effort, not one dramatic moment. That the vision isn't destination, but direction. We're still marching, still dreaming, still struggling. The journey continues. Will you join? One last thing. Those marchers didn't know they'd become legends. They just showed up, scared and determined. They did what they could with what they had. That's all any of us can do. Maybe that's enough. Maybe ordinary courage multiplied becomes extraordinary transformation. History waits for you.